So, after a long time, I finally decided to watch this movie, and you know what? It's better than I remembered. Hello everyone, this is IC Abyss here, and today we are going to talk about the first Thor movie. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, because there hasn't been any new Marvel content releasing for me to review, I thought maybe it's a good idea to take a trip back in memory lane and review some of the older movies. I think it's a fun idea and I'll definitely have fun reviewing the older Marvel movies. But I would also like to know if you want me to review any other movie. I'm always open to suggestions, so leave them in the comments down below. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this movie is better than I remembered, mainly because I never consciously made an effort to watch this movie when it came out. I wasn't really that into Marvel back then and only watched this movie a little bit when it was on television. I never made an effort to watch this movie from beginning to the end until now, that is. And I have to say the beginning of this movie was more important than I realized, mainly because there's a lot of exposition involved that adds so much to the movie. Basically, it gives the history of Asgardians and Frost Giants and Asgardian guarding the Midgard, which is Earth, from Frost Giants. Then we cut to Thor, who is taking oath to be the new king of Asgard, but before he can take the crown, some Frost Giants invade the palace and take the casket. And yes, I am definitely confused as to what the casket is, but more on that later. Anyhow, the Frost Giants are unable to take the casket because they are stopped by the Destroyer, who is a guardian that guards these relics in Asgard. Thor is obviously pissed at the idea of Frost Giants invading the Asgard, even though Odin has a peace treaty with their king. Thor insists on taking this as a sign that Frost Giants have broken their peace treaty and that Asgardians should go to war against them. Odin is obviously against the idea and forbids him, and obviously Thor does the exact opposite of that. He and his merry band of Asgardians go to Jotunheim to fight the Frost Giants. There they get overwhelmed and Odin has to intervene. Odin tries to convince Laufey, that is the name of the king of Frost Giants, kind of a goofy name, sounds similar to Luffy, so I'm going to call him Luffy from now on. So Odin tries to convince Luffy to not take the actions of Thor as an act of war, but Luffy says that it is wartime, baby, and Odin takes Thor and everyone away from Jotunheim using Bifrost. When they get back, Odin takes away Thor's power and makes him unworthy. Now I really like this scene because the emotion and the acting from the actors were really good, like the sheer emotions that the actors displayed. I think it was a really well acted scene, and if you don't remember it, maybe you should watch it again, because watching it after so many years, it definitely sent chills down my spine. And now you already know the rest of the film. Thor goes to Earth, meets with Jane Foster and tries to get his hammer back, fails, and then his merry band of Asgardians come back, but Loki sends a destroyer to kill Thor. Thor becomes worthy again and goes back to Asgard to defeat Loki, who is busy destroying Jotunheim by using the Bifrost. Thor stops that by destroying the Bifrost, which means that he cannot see Jane Foster again. So that was the gist of the film. But there were some tiny details that I found after watching this movie that I never noticed before. For example, I always thought it was weird that Odin sent Thor's hammer to the same planet where he banished Thor, but then I realized that he did that precisely because he wanted Thor to learn his lesson and be worthy again. Now that might seem obvious to you, but hey, don't blame me. This is the first time that I'm actually paying attention when I'm watching this movie. I really like how they evolved Thor in this character. He does seem like the overconfident Viking who is seeking glory and wants to travel in the footsteps of his father. You see Thor and Loki grow up hearing the stories of their father having glorious battle in Jotunheim and destroying the Frost Giants. Naturally, they both wanted to do the same thing. Thor at the beginning of the movie and Loki towards the end of the movie try to destroy the Frost Giants. Thor at the beginning of the movie seems really inexperienced, and when they go to Jotunheim and talks to Luffy, you can see how misguided he is. I think Luffy didn't get much attention in this movie, and trust me, I have much to say about him. I think they could have done so much more with Luffy's character. In the brief first moments that we see him, we see how experienced he is by the few dialogues that he has. I really love the line that he says to Thor, and I am paraphrasing, so excuse me. He says, "You do not understand the consequences of your actions, boy. I do. so leave while I still allow it. I really like the fact that the villain seems more mature in this scene than Thor. I wish they had given more time to Luffy and developed him more as a villain for the next movie, because obviously Loki is the main villain of this movie, so I think it would have been perfect if Luffy was the villain of the second movie. And speaking of Loki being the villain of this movie, I think Tom Hiddleston did a great job with this character. I understand why everyone loves this character even to this day. Loki starts out innocent enough, and as the story progresses further and further, then you realize that yeah, Loki is definitely a prick. The way Loki was trying to manipulate Thor by telling him that he was right about the frost giants, that he can do nothing about it now that Odin has forbidden them to do anything, knowing well enough that Thor would disobey Odin if pushed even a little bit. I really like how he tries to manipulate, making Thor think that it was his idea to go to Jotunheim. Moving further ahead, I really like Thor being on Earth in this movie. Frankly, that was the best part, because I don't think they have really fleshed out Asgard as a place too much in this movie. All you see is some city shots and guards and the palace, no ordinary people and nothing else really. I really liked the Thor and Jane Foster romance as well, that was nice. There was one funny scene that I found, and it's probably not funny in this movie, but if you consider the newer movies, it's definitely funny. That is when Lady Sif was fighting with the Destroyer and she falls in battle. She tells Thor that she will die fighting and go to Valhalla. Thor talks her out of it, telling her that she has too much to live and that she should tell the tales of her battle herself. If you remember, same thing happens in Thor Love and Thunder, where Lady Sif was dying and Thor yet again talks her out of it. I mean, it's kind of funny. I don't think Lady Sif is ever going to Valhalla if she keeps hanging around with Thor. Now I want to talk about that weird casket, because it looks exactly like the Tesseract, but Captain Marvel movie established that Tesseract was on Earth way before Thor showed up. So I don't really know what to think. Is that casket Tesseract or not? I don't think it is, because too many Marvel movies has established the fact that Tesseract was always on Earth from the first Captain America movie to the Endgame. So yeah, I don't know what to think about this weird casket thing. All in all, I think that it was a perfect movie to introduce the character of Thor. This movie has a lot more details than I remember, and it's definitely interesting to go back and watch this movie. But for now, this is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, it's time for a goodbye.